Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Brooke and I am back with another video of a murder that happened in Prince Edward Island, Canada. Now, today's story is about a lady. Her name was Shirley Duguay and she was born in 1962 here in Prince Edward Island and unfortunately went missing in 1994. Now, this is the story of how one small white hair solved the mystery and the disappearance of Shirley. Now, in 1994, a call came into the police that a woman found an abandoned car in a field that was a little bit away from the road. So police went, and of course, they went and investigated the car. But when they came to the car, they actually realized that it wasn't just an abandoned car, that it was actually a crime scene. So a bunch of blood splatter was found throughout the car and on the inside of the window shield of the car. So after finding the serial number, they found out that the car belonged to Shirley. So for forensic scientists, they actually said that the blood splatter was like a medium impact splatter, which would indicate that somebody was hit with an object like a fist. So Shirley Duguay was the mother of 5 children, the oldest being 15 years old and the youngest being actually a set of twins that were only 8 years old. So after a thorough investigation was being held, Shirley's family said that they actually hadn't seen her in days and that they were worried, but they weren't very concerned because I guess Shirley did take off a lot without telling people where she was going, so they really didn't think anything of it. So in the midst of the investigation, like thousands of police and army and local residents sought out to find what they would assume Shirley's body. So Shirley was actually this really tiny woman. She was about 4 feet 9 inches and less than 100 pounds. And when she would drive her car, she would always use a pillow because she was itty bitty and I know how she feels. But actually, when they were searching around the car, they did find a pillow which belonged to Shirley's car and it was covered in blood. So to identify the blood that was found in the car, scientists needed to get a sample of Shirley's father's DNA because, of course, you always have 50-50 of your parents' DNA. So after testing her father's DNA, they found out that the blood in the car indeed did contain 50% of Melvin, which is Shirley's father's DNA. And that would mean that the blood did belong to Shirley. So while examining the blood, forensic scientists, they actually found someone else's blood. So they continued the search party, which would actually become the largest search party that was ever conducted in Prince Edward Island. So they checked hundreds of square miles and they checked every waterway that they could find. They even used psychics to see if they could see anything. And you know, it's weird. Some of the psychics even said that they seen a shallow grave and they seen water and under pine trees, but they couldn't pinpoint an exact location. So about half a mile from where Shirley's car was found, they actually discovered a shovel with 2 long black hairs on it. And scientists compared those hairs to hairs that was taken from Shirley's hairbrush, and it seemed to be a match. So the search is going on still, and it's been going on for a couple weeks now, right? And they actually came across another clue. They found a plastic bag 15 miles from where the car was found. Now, in this plastic bag contained a pair of sneakers and a brown leather jacket that was covered in blood. So police at this point, they're just like absolutely stumped and they just don't know what to do. So they go to Melvin, Shirley's father, and they ask her, is there anyone that could have wanted to harm your daughter? And the only person that he could think of was actually Shirley's estranged ex-husband, Doug Beamish. So police learned that Doug was actually very, very physically abusive during their 15-year marriage. So the police actually went out to Doug's house and they did an interview with him. And of course, he denied any involvement with her disappearance. And during the investigation, police actually asked Doug what size shoe he was. And he answered with size 9. So it's kind of weird that his size 9 feet fit the shoes that were actually found with the bloody leather jacket in the plastic bag in the woods. So, of course, being curious, the police wanted to know if the shoes did belong to Doug. And they hired a podiatrist named Dr. Keith. So, with a warrant, the police actually took a cast of Doug's feet with a styrofoam mold and then poured plaster into it. So they wanted to actually compare the wear in the molds with Doug's feet to the sneakers that they found in the woods. So Doug Beamish's feet were actually pronated, and what that means is that his feet turned inwards. And when Dr. Bettles actually cut open the shoes that they found in the woods, they actually were worn by a person that had pronated feet. So after the investigation with the shoes, they were actually quite satisfied that these shoes that they did found in the woods did belong to Doug Beamish. So of course, Doug Beamish denied that the shoes were his and that the leather jacket was his. And while investigating, looking into the leather jacket, they actually found something weird. It was actually 20 little tiny brittle white hairs that were too, of course, brittle to be human. So looking further into it, they actually discovered that these hairs were, of course, animal. So Constable Roger Savoy actually remembered something from his interview with Beamish. He recalled in the middle of an interview, he seen a cat. And it wasn't just a regular cat, it was a white cat. So the cat's name was Snowball. And Constable, he remembered actually that the cat rubbed against his leg and he left a number of white hairs. So when they looked at the white hairs, they were identical to the ones that were actually found on the brown leather jacket. But during this time, forensic testing on cat hair had never been done. It hasn't been done anywhere in the world. So they later came upon a geneticist named Stephen O'Brien, who spent decades studying hereditary illnesses in cats. So after hearing about the murder, he actually asked the police for a blood sample of Snowball's. And of course, being a cat, Snowball wasn't being cooperative and actually took them about 30 minutes to even get Snowball out of the Beamish residence. So after getting the blood sample from Snowball, the DNA profile from the hairs found in the leather jacket was then compared with the DNA that they took from Snowball. And it was a very clear match, of course, and back then they weren't sure that if all the cats had the same kind of genetic code. So what they did was he asked them to send 20 blood samples from 20 different cats so that he could compare it to make sure that it wasn't the same. And it was totally different. The actual, I think the numbers was 1 in 70 million. So it came back that 100% the hairs that were found on the leather jacket did indeed belong to Snowball. So this indeed was the break that they were looking for, and 7 months into the investigation, a fisherman actually found a pile of brush on the ground when he was going to the river, and it seemed quite out of the ordinary, so of course he went over and looked at it, and he actually found a human body. So after identifying that it was Shirley, this is so weird. So Shirley was actually found by the river in a shallow grave under a pine tree. Now remember, the psychic said that they could see a shallow grave, they could see water, and they seen pine trees, okay? At the autopsy, the cause of death was blunt force trauma. That's just as the blood splatter in the car indicated. Shirley's nose was actually broken in 3 spots, and her jaw was broken as well. And during the autopsy, they actually found one of her teeth embedded into her lungs. Remember I said that they found somebody else's blood. They actually identified that it did belong to Doug Beamish, and he was then arrested and charged with murder. Another thing that happened was that leather jacket that Doug denied being his, police actually found a photograph taken a day before Shirley's disappearance. So what was Doug's motive? police actually found a letter that was written in blood threatening to kill Shirley if she tried to take the children from him. So what I found the most awful is that Doug Beamish was only actually sentenced to 18 years in prison for this. But this case is definitely one of the most celebrated cases because it was the first time that animal DNA was actually used to convict a murderer. So, thanks to Snowball, Doug Beamish was sent to prison. They did find Shirley and she was given a proper burial. And hopefully he stays in prison longer. But anyways, guys, that's all I have for now. So make sure that you like this video and you subscribe. I do these every 3 days and I would love your guys' feedback. Anything is great. But that's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Bye.